Welcome to Dungeon Master Talk, the podcast for Dungeon Masters by Dungeon Masters. I am Dungeon Master Kyle, and with me today, as always, is...
Dungeon Master Shay. How are you, Kyle?
I'm doing well, Shay. How are you?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. It's another day to talk D&D, man.
Cannot get enough of that, man. I feel like we do this thing where we come together, we talk, and it always leads to D&D, but it's something different when we actually get together and we know we're going to talk D&D. I get excited.
I can't focus at work.
Exactly. It's like all day long, I'm just like, ooh, what are we going to talk about? And then I get all these ideas. And then you ask me what I want to talk about tonight. And I'm like,
that one.
Yes. Well, listeners, Shay and I, we've started this thing where we like to give a few shout outs here. And lately, we really just want to be shouting out Feedspot because they have so graciously included us on their list of top 15 Dungeon Master podcasts. We'll have a link to that in the description. Please check out that list. The other podcasts on that list are all awesome. And we just want to say a giant thank you to Feedspot for including us. Also, listeners, recently I was at MagicCon in Chicago and I met two very cool dudes who run a podcast that I've since checked out and very much love. So they have no idea I'm going to do this. So please check out Comfort Zone Commander. They are on, I think, everything. Spotify, YouTube, and they are really cool. Chill guys that are just talking Magic the Gathering, which is a game I very much love and spend way too much of my life doing. And I think that they have a really fun podcast, and I think you should check it out. So, that's Dan and John.
I'll say this, guys. Like, I'm not much into the Magic community. That's just never something I've gotten into myself. But I know Kyle.
I've tried so hard
and gotten so far, but in the end, hasn't worked.
So close.
I have nothing against it. It's just it's never just been something I've picked up. But I know Kyle's really, really excited about this, and this is something he's really interested in, and I trust him. So if you're into music, if you're into Magic and not the D&D type of Magic, definitely check him out.
Although close.
I will actually check him out at least for a couple episodes just to see what it's all about and go from there. So
listeners, just because I'm me, I'm going to do a quick excerpt. Magic the Gathering, it's a game that's also ran by Wizards of the Coast, who is the parent company of Dungeons and Dragons. That's really where the similarities in, because Dungeons and Dragons were collaborative storytelling. Magic the Gathering, it is a competitive card game. And Commander is a specific format of it. That's the one I love. It is a group experience again. So you get out of that one against one space and into a group that's more social. And this podcast really just brings that energy, the chill atmosphere that's fun and creative that made me love the game of Commander, specifically within Magic. So please check them out.
Yeah.
And with that out of the way, again, they had no idea I was going to do that. They are not a sponsor, just really cool people that I wanted to shout out. Shay, I believe you had a great idea today. Do you want to announce what's going to be our advice section today?
I do, but I have one more announcement if I can.
Yes, you may.
Some of you may have seen this already if you've been on our Facebook page, but we are now officially on YouTube.
Woo whoop.
And we are super excited for that. We don't have video as of this date and time, but that may be something that we're looking into. I need to buy more camera lenses for my webcam because I'm going to break a lot of them. But it's just one of those things that we just haven't quite got there yet. So be patient with us. If you are a YouTuber or somebody who likes to listen to podcasts with YouTube, we are now officially on YouTube. So we're super excited for that and hope that you'll join us on that platform or continue to join us on any other platform that you choose to listen to the show on. So we're just super excited for that.
And when this podcast drops, it'll be true that we will also have entered into one new realm of social media.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And listeners, you may be aware that Shay and I are a little social media challenged. As it were. So we are reaching out, and many thanks to her for helping us out. But my wife will be helping us with this new venture in social media onto Instagram. So by the time this episode actually goes live, we'll have hopefully already posted a few times on Instagram, and it'll hopefully by then be Shay and I doing it because we'll have learned to not be as social media challenged as we currently are.
Yeah, usually for me, I have a thought and then I have another thought which negates the first thought I just had, and then the third thought comes and negates the first two that I had. So by the time I remembered that I had the first thought, it's usually been like a day or two. I'm like, oh, yeah, shoot, I should have done that. But
my problem is I can't spell, and so I'm scared to death to put anything out into these written forms of interacting with people because I'm going to spell it wrong.
It's a good thing that you know a teacher because she's pretty good at that stuff.
Very good at that.
Yeah. So that's always good. Teachers are amazing.
Yes,
Please thank your teachers.
So listeners, there was a little bit behind the scenes, so you know why I'm gun shy on social media. So Shay, will you introduce our topics for today, good sir?
Yes, I will. So topic for the day is feats.
Feats.
And not the ones on your feet. We're talking about feats that you can take to make your character that much more awesome in the game of Dungeons and Dragons.
Shay, I completely misprepared. You said you want to talk about feat in Dungeons and Dragons, and my notes are ill-equipped for feats. So I was going to talk about, well, some halflings may have hairy feet.
I think you just totally stepped on my joke there, bro.
It's for realness.
No, I'm just kidding. All right, feats. So, feats in D&D are probably, I think, one of the most fun things that you can do when you're customizing your character. Feats allow you to do special things really, really well, and you can get them in a couple of different ways, and we'll kind of talk about that. We'll talk about kind of a brief overview of what feats used to be versus what they've kind of become, and then I'll give you my top 3 feats I think that Dungeons and Dragons have in the Players Handbook. And these 3 are a little bit OP, but as a DM, you need to be prepared for them because if your players have them, you're going to have to respond in a certain way. And I think it's important to at least, if you're not familiar with them, you need to know what they are, so that way you can at least plan ahead.
Yep.
So, let's talk about the history. Back in my day.
Really?
And by back in my day, I mean everybody before me playing editions way before me.
Yep. As I say, neither one of us are really going to have a lot of experience going back too far. As we've talked about in the past, Shay and I joined in.
Like
Shay,
4th ed, 5th, no, Pathfinder.
Pathfinder and 5e. So this is a lot of research on our part. So listeners, if you have experience with this feats in older editions of D&D or D&D-like games that have something similar and you want to share them with us, please do so at the social medias that we'll list at the end, but also dungeonmastertalk@gmail.com. We love to hear your stories. Shay, continue on. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, yeah, no worries. That's a good commercial plug. So basically, the way I understand it, and having talked to one of my players who has actually played from, I believe, 2nd edition. It might have played first, but I know he played 2nd for sure. And then he played 3, 3.5, 4. And I think he played a little bit of 4, Pathfinder, and then now 5e with me. Feats in the olden days, they had everything had a feat. You had a feat for picking up a sword, picking up a hammer, like everything. It wasn't generalized like it is today, where like a fighter, for example, is proficient with every weapon. Like a fighter back then, you had to take a feat to be proficient with your sword or the hammer, with an axe, whatever it was that you wanted to be. If you wanted to be proficient with 2-handed weapons, there was a special feat for that. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feats that were basic proficiencies, basically what we kind of take for granted in our character creations today in 5th edition, right? Because like fighters are kind of given all weapons, all armor type thing, whereas certain classes are better, like they're just innately better with certain specific ones. Yeah,
the game was a little bit harder from that entry perspective.
Yes.
Back then, but it was, some would argue, it was more granular, which gave you a better sense of control once you knew the system. And I definitely feel from reading these that I can see where that is 100% felt.
Yeah, the problem with that is, though, like, you didn't really have a good build of a character because until you hit probably level 15.
Yep.
Because you had to take so many different feats just to make you proficient with enough items or different weapons, armors, magic, whatever it was.
Yeah, I've heard the argument from others that a level 3 5e character is vastly more powerful in their world by comparison than a level 3 3.5 character was. And I don't know personally from real world experience to speak to that. That's the stuff I've heard and read.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where you start to get that feel, is because it is a lot more taken for granted with your character based off of the class you choose.
And guys that have played older ones, please feel free to correct us, but I believe
please.
like a level 3 5th ed fighter would be about the equivalent of a level 7 fighter in the older days, I think. Wow. Depending on the build that they did. Like, if you were just to take like a basic archetype fight, like a champion fighter, I think you would be stronger than a level 7-ish character in like 2nd or 3rd edition.
And this was done to make the game feel more inviting to new players, because it was less to make it feel like you actually are this class.
Yeah, and back then, like, the way you had to hit, you had to do things like roll for Thaco. You had to, and the thing was, you wanted to roll low to hit. It was a really inverted calculus based system where you had to, like, basically Thaco meaning to hit armor class 0 is what it means. So the lower the number you rolled, the better you hit. It was kind of like an inverted nat 20, essentially, is what it was.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was a really weird concept. And I probably just made a couple of guys go, "Oh yay, he mentioned Thaco." Believe me, I barely even know what it is, and I probably butchered the definition of it. But that's kind of the way I understand how that works. So going forward, like, basically, as 4th edition kind of came around, they kind of said, "Okay, there's like 1,001 feats that somebody can do. Let's take some of these different feats, and we're just kind of like squish some of those together a little bit." And then by the time they got to 5th ed, they really took them and they kind of squished them a little bit more together to make really coherent type feats that weren't just like, they were a little bit more broad, but they also were a little bit more put together and more powerful versus what they used to be, right?
Right. And I want a disclaimer here, listeners, just because I think this way and I get self-conscious about it. Listeners, by no way, means, shape, or form are Shay and I saying that the 5e way is like the perfect best way, and
no,
or that 3.5 was better. Whichever one you have the most fun with is the best one. And so if you are someone who's still playing with original ed D&D and you love it and you're listening, know that that is the right choice then for you. If you and your play group love it, we're just giving the history recap up to this point as we understand it, quick gloss over, and then getting into the 5e where Shay and I have experience and can speak from.
Yeah, we have a little bit better footing in 5e, yeah.
Yep.
And there are days, like, I kind of want to do at least a one-shot in an older edition. I just haven't found a group or a game to do that with yet.
Yeah, and time. Time is so hard.
I put that on my D&D bucket list at some point to try and do a one-shot in an older edition at some point.
Hit me up. I will play in it.
Sweet. I'm not running this game. I just want you to know I'm not going to run it. I just want to play in it just to see what it's kind of like.
Yeah, I'm saying invite me to it. I want to experience as well.
Okay, I got your number. I'll call you. So now that we've kind of gone over the history of it, I think feats can be really important because of characterization, customizations that you can do, but it can really bring your character to life, or it can really accentuate what your player is good at. And I think it's something that if you understand, especially if you have a group that's fairly new, you can help to kind of explain one of the ways that, like, this feat would be better for you than this feat, because if you're a strength-based fighter, maybe you want to do something like Tavern Brawler, where if you're up in melee with people, you can basically take opportunity attacks for free almost. There's some stipulations on it, but usually when you're talking feats in D&D, you get them as a player at the levels that have, I think it's like improvement ability score, I think is what it's called in the book.
Yep, I think.
And so basically, well, actually, here, Kyle, I'm going to throw this at you.
Okay.
Do you know which class gets the most ability improvement score feats in a game?
You would ask me that when I'm unprepared. Most ability score enhancement.
Yep.
I used to know the answer to this, but you caught me off guard and I do not right now.
Take a guess.
Is it the druid? No, I didn't think I was going to be right. Which one is it?
It's the fighter.
Is it? Okay. That was my first thought, but then I went like, no, that's the too blatantly obvious one, so I took it out of my head.
If I remember right, and I didn't look at this ahead of time, but I'm pretty sure it's the fighter because they think they get 6 total. And so if you came in as a human with the variant, the feat variant, you could actually end up with 7.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous.
That is.
I think the average, I want to say the average is 4.
Yep, so the fighter, you're right, it is the fighter. They get ability score increases at 4, 6, 8, 12, 14, 16, and 19.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I think the rest of them are usually at like 4, 8, 11, and 17.
I'd have to look. When I don't have my player handbook in front of me.
Yeah.
I'm not good at this.
It's something like, it's like 4, yeah, it's like 4, 8, 11, and I want to say it's like 16 or 17, maybe 18, somewhere in there, just depending on how far up your players and your PCs go. I think it's something that's really cool to look into, and like I said, with the human, they're kind of the wild card, because you can either take a +1 to everything, or I think you can add a +1 to 2 different categories when you build your human and take a feat. So you could, if you were a human, you could take a feat right off the bat. Now, I've heard some people like say that they will homebrew this to where you can get all of the ability scores and the feat, which is, I think it's a little bit like...
That's a little overpowered.
I think it's a little OP, but I think their reasoning for that is because people almost never play a human in D&D.
Yeah. My campaign's a little odd in that we do have 2 outright humans in the party, and we have one who pretends he's human. So to the outside, I sometimes forget he's not, just because he's like, call me a human, even though he's a half-elf. And that's because we start with a pre-build, so it had that race selection done already.
Right.
Now, I think the cool thing with feats and DMs, why we should encourage our players to take the feats when they can, and ultimately it's player's choice.
Yeah.
We'd never, ever, ever want to make a player feel like they have to play away. So you have to be careful with that. But feats are a way to distinguish between, if you have overlap between, for say my party, we have 2 fighters. One has definitely gone the way of your more martial combat, and one has gone the way of being an archer. And that started like really getting exaggerated, their differences, when the archer took a feat. And I don't want to steal the thunder with announcing this feat, because I know it's on Shay's list in a bit.
Dun, da, da, da.
But essentially, yeah, segueing a little bit maybe. Essentially, from then on out, the combat was 100% different for them. And then that led to their roleplay being different, because how they're positioning themselves and their behavior and their choices and all that rolled into their characters. And the feat was kind of a natural launching point of, hey, here's a clear delineation of our specialties and why we are both super relevant to the party.
And I think, too, something to keep in mind, depending on the feat that you pick, because in the book it states that, like, when you get to the ability score improvement, you either pick a feat or you do your skill upgrades.
Yep.
So if you have a score that you really need to bump up, then that's not the level to take a feat.
Yep.
However, depending on the feat that you do pick, they do give you bonuses to different stats. So if there's a stat that you find a feat that will kind of help you with, it's kind of a 2-in-1 kind of thing where you get to bump your stats and take that feat at the same time.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on the feat that you're looking at and what you're trying to overall do. Like, for example, if you're wanting something that gives you more charisma, like maybe you could, and you're
Actor.
A bard maybe, or like a trickster rogue, or just somebody that's a very charismatic character, you know, maybe you could take an actor feat, which would give you a +1 to your charisma with a maximum of 20, and it gives you an advantage on deception or performance checks, which...
That's huge. Yeah, that's something that if I ever actually do play Cade full time, he currently, because I threw together his sheet just so I would have it for that one off, so I didn't take feat. I was trying to do it quickly. If I was ever playing him full time, 100% I would take actor, because my whole goal with that character when I am him is that he is not a combat dude. But he is very much wants to be the mouthpiece for the party, the one that speaks on behalf of the party, the one that really manipulates the situations. And actor, it better equips you for that. And that's what Feats should do.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things to keep in mind, too, like most of these stats, if you do take these and you take the ability increase, if you're at 20 already, you can't go above that with the feat.
It'll never let you go above 20.
Yeah, so like if you're sitting at like an 18 or a 19, then maybe take that feat, but just be careful because you can't go above that 20.
Yep.
There might be one in there that goes above 20, but I'm pretty sure most of them, like 90% of them, stay 20 as the max.
I know we have a lot of listeners out there that you think, oh, I don't have to worry about hitting that maximum in my group. Our campaigns never last that long. If you're someone that's thinking that, talk to your DM about running a higher level campaign. They're quite fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really powerful, really cool stuff that you can do as a player. Then also some really cool monsters that you can face at higher levels that are not fun to face at lower levels because you'll just die immediately.
Yep, pretty much.
There's so much cool stuff. So if you've never done it, it'd be cool to ask your DM if they'd be even willing to do a one-off for you at higher level where you can experience what being at level 20.
Something else to keep in mind too. So in my party, I have a melee fighter, kind of like you do.
Mm-hmm.
If you, for example, so like as a fighter, you get character creation when you're going through your fighter class. You can pick like great weapon defense or dual wielding or some other things. You can pick one. Let's say you take great weapon mastery at character creation. If you feel like your character wants to kind of get into dual wielding at like level 2, level 4, whatever, you could take the dual wielder feat and then kind of break into both of those at the same time. So you wouldn't be limited. You could get bonuses for handling great weapons, or if you wanted to have a pair of hand axes or, throwing hammers or whatever in your hands, you wouldn't lose your proficiencies in that as well. So that would be something to keep in mind. Another one that I've liked in the past when I play clerics is the healer feat, which basically allows you to make these little like wound packs, if you want to call them that. And that gives you extra healing to your party without having to spend a spell slot. So that could be something like if you're in a long dungeon crawl, or if you're like a really long day session where like you're in a fight and then you get ambushed for another fight. If you just need a few extra hit points to get you going, that healer feat could help you out a little bit too.
And it can help if your party's like where my party currently finds themselves, where nobody's really specialized in the arts of healing. And so they hurt for this. And if they don't have potions, combat or long sprawled out combat can be hard.
Yeah.
Because, hey, this combat wouldn't normally be deadly, but we came into it down on health. Or it makes travel take a long time because, oh no, we had an encounter. Now we have to rest.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a healer. So having someone take that healer feat is a way to kind of branch into adding that into their repertoire without refactoring their character.
The one thing I would say though is if you're going to do that, maybe have that player buy the herbalism kit first.
Yep.
And have them practice, like kind of have them like work their way into that and not just give it to them right off the bat.
This is a great segue into this.
Okay.
With feats, DMs, we do have, it says in the player handbook we can, and I wanted to bring it up here, granting feats to characters. And I know that Shay and I have opinions on this because we have opinions on everything.
What? No.
My hard stance that I take on all things with D&D is it has to make sense in the story. So it can't be, they fell asleep and they're like, nobody can heal us. And they woke up and like, well, now I can. Right? Because that just doesn't fit. You can't really explain it away. It breaks that kind of feel of this was a story that we were telling. This was adventure. This was hard, something that we had to overcome. Who did they learn it from? How did they learn it? How did they come across this skill? Were they blessed?
Sheer dumb luck dice rolls.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my party had that feat, and I have no idea how they got that onto their character sheets. I've still been investigating because I didn't grant it. But did a deity bless them with this skill? Did they travel with some time with an ancient druid who departed this skill upon them? Or how do they get it? Do you spend some time in a guild? Make it make sense? That's my stance. And that can be through natural growth around a campaign. That can be handled And if you have a break section where maybe the player characters took a month off in game, and they got to write some stuff for their characters, and that can be a time that a feat could be granted outside the leveling system. But I also call for caution on that, just because it is very easy for players to get powerful, especially if they have a few legendary weapons. So make sure that if you do grant a feat, you account for that when you are creating your combats, that they may be stronger than your typical level 8 fighter or your typical level 10 wizard if they've gained an extra feat along the way.
The other thing I would say also too is sometimes players kind of forget that they have feats.
Absolutely.
So also be that guy or gal that does remind them that they do have a special feat that allows them to do X, Y, or Z, just to kind of help them enrich their gameplay as well.
Something I didn't used to do, very recently did, because I've branched out trying to get more into the digital realm to better equip my players. I never used to have copies of my players' character sheets. And so it made it very hard for me to make the recommendation or call out, hey, notice you're not using this skill, or hey, you're this alignment on your character sheet, but you're really playing like X. Having access to that, it's not to police their gameplay. It's to help them have a better experience.
Right.
It's been a long time since you've used your, I'm trying to think of one. Well, our rogue, he had the ability to half the damage done to him.
Oh, his uncanny dodge?
Yeah, his uncanny dodge, and he had never done it. And so just wanted to shout out to him, like, hey, wanted to make sure that you know you can do this. And now...
He's like, what?
He gives me the honoriest grin every time he does it, because he can tell now sometimes I forget he has it, and I'm all excited because I'm going to hit him hard, and he's like, no, you're not.
Careful, though, because I think there is a limit on how many times you can do that in a fight, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Yep, I always have to look it up, too. I never remember it.
Are we ready for a list?
I'm ready for a list.
Let's do this. Let's do our 2 honorable mentions first. So I have an honorable mention if you have one, and then I'll go into my list. And they are not in any particular, like, most OP to least OP. It's just the 3 that I think kind of like the best feats for any party member, not just like certain PC specific.
Yep.
Specific.
All right, so do your honorable mention, then I'll do mine, and then you'll do your list, because I didn't prepare a list, listeners.
Okay. So honorable mention for me is tough. And it says your hit point maximum increases by an amount equal to twice your level when you gain this feat. Whenever you gain a level thereafter, your hit point maximum increases by an additional 2 hit points.
Wow.
So
Tank.
If you grab this one, say at like level 17,
34 more hit points.
Your hit point maximum doubles, or the amount increases. Let's see. Your maximum increases by an amount equal to twice your level when you gain that feat. So like, you can gain almost like 50 hit point maximum like that.
Yeah. So if you take it at 17, how I interpret that meaning, and I may be interpreting it wrong, is double your level. So if you're level 17, add 34 is how I'm reading it.
Yep.
Yeah, but then 2 every level after that.
Right. Plus whatever you would get for your hit die if you roll for hit point maximum, or if you just take the max like I do in my group.
Yeah, but a minimum of 34 at that point.
Exactly.
And you can't roll a 0. At least...
Nope.
I've never on a hit die been able to successfully roll a 0, and I have the worst luck known to man. So it must not be possible.
You just need to play paladins, man. So, but yeah, that's my honorable mention. Do you have one that's kind of kicking around in your head?
Yes. So my honorable mention is Fey Teleportation.
Ooh.
This prerequisite, you have to be a high elf. So it is limited to that, but this is a very powerful feat. Your study of high elven lore has unlocked Fey power that few other elves possess, except your Eladrin, I can never say that, cousins.
Eladrin?
Yes, thank you. Drawing on your Fey ancestry, you can momentarily stride through the Feywild to shorten your path from one place to another. You gain the following benefits. Increase your intelligence or charisma by 1 to a maximum of 20. You learn to speak, read, and write Sylvan. You learn the Misty Step spell.
Okay.
And can cast it once without expending a spell slot.
Nice.
You regain the ability to cast it in this way when you finish a short or long rest. And intelligence is your spellcasting ability for the spell.
What book is that out of?
That is a question you would ask me. I just was looking it up directly because I remembered this one. I was like, which one's that gives you Misty Step feat? Because Misty Step, as my players know, is a spell that is near and dear to my heart. And I loved my villain who got to use that spell.
All right, so top 3, not in any specific order. We're going to start with Alert. Always on the lookout for danger, you gain the following benefits. You gain a +5 bonus to initiative, so that can be really helpful in fights. You can't be surprised while you're conscious, so if you're, say, an elf who goes into trance and they don't actually sleep.
You can never be surprised.
Yep, which leads into the next one. Other creatures don't gain advantage on attack rolls against you as a result of being hidden from you. So if somebody's trying to ambush your party and you're an elf who doesn't actually sleep and have the alert feat, good luck with that.
So to answer your question, sorry to interrupt on this, it was from Xanathars' Guide to Everything.
Oh, nice. I love that book.
Sorry, Cauldron of Everything.
Oh, Tasha's?
No, Guide. I was right the first time. No, sorry. I was right the first time. Xanathars' Guide to Everything. I mixed those because they both say everything.
I love Xanathar. He's my guy.
Yeah. But back to the alert feat. Sorry about that.
All right. So, yeah, that was the alert. That, like I said, that's good for either people who like to do night watches for the team, or if you're an elf that is basically always awake, or whoever has a goes into trance. I think Eladrin go into trances also. I don't think they actually sleep. Maybe Drow, possibly.
So maybe for this...
Don't think so.
If you're an experienced DM, this is obvious. Why not being able to be surprised is powerful. If you're relatively inexperienced, or maybe just this doesn't come up a lot in your campaign, it's been a while, not being able to be surprised means you can't have that surprise round happen against you.
Yep.
They don't get that bonus round.
That can be huge.
Very powerful. Yeah, that's sometimes the difference in a very hard encounter.
Well, and especially like at low levels when you have a handful of hit points anyway.
Yep. If
you get surprised in an attack round that you don't get to hit back, that can be kind of dangerous. So just be prepared for that.
Yeah, a whole round that no defense spells can be cast, no, it's just them. They get to do it, and then we roll for initiatives.
Yeah.
If that being erased when that player's involved is very powerful.
All right. Actually, I have 4. I'm going to do 4 instead of 3. Sorry, because I remember telling you about one I had. Okay, the next one, again, not in any particular order. Number 2.
Not ordered, but here's a number.
Number 2, Keen Mind. You have a mind that can track time, direction, and detail with uncanny precision. You gain the following benefits. Increase your intelligence by 1 to a maximum of 20. You always know which way is north, which can be good to know for tracking things.
I feel like my grandpa had this feat. He was so good at it.
Oh, my granddad had the same thing, yeah. You always know the number of hours left before the next sunrise or sunset. So that can be good as far as like planning an ambush or just like travel tactics, things like that. And one thing, especially if you're a wizard or a warlock or somebody who is a very intelligence-based person, you can accurately recall anything you have seen or heard within the past month. Say a wizard is fumbling through a spell book in a bookshop. They read it, they remember it, they can copy it down.
Yep.
That goes into their spell book. It is that simple.
Yeah, and it's that bullet that you can accurately recall anything you have seen or heard within the past month that takes this from a decent feat to a very powerful feat.
Yes, it's very good.
And the DMs, if you have a player that has the Keen Mind feat, this means that you have to be very good at your notes. Because it doesn't say that the player, need to perfectly recall it. It says that their character can accurately recall anything they've seen or heard within the past month. So they may remember, like the player may say, hey, I saw this thing.
Mm-hmm.
My character would know it all because I have Keen Mind.
Yep.
Now, you DM have to know what that was.
Exactly. All right. Number 3. Lucky. You have an inexplicable luck that seems to kick in at just the right moment. You have 3 luck points. Whenever you make an attack roll or ability check or saving throw, you can spend 1 luck point to roll an additional d20. You can choose to spend 1 of your luck points after you roll the die, but before the outcome is determined. You choose which of the d20s is used for the attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. So that can be good. That's almost like built-in advantage for you to make sure you succeed if you get to reroll, right? You can also spend 1 luck point when an attack roll is made against you. Roll a d20 and then choose whether the attack uses the attacker's roll or yours. If more than one creature spends a luck point to influence the outcome of a roll, the points cancel each other out. No additional dice are rolled. You regain expended luck points when you finish a long rest. So every day that you finish a long rest, you get all 3 points back.
Yes, which this is probably the most famous feat in D&D 5e, I believe. It's the one that even new players seem to figure out pretty quick. When you Google powerful feats, this one's in everyone's list.
Yes.
It's not really contended very often. And it's pretty easy to see why. This game is all about, at the end of the day, what these dice... I'm holding up a dice, listeners.
Look at you. Got your dice out. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, too many times I didn't. And we're like, hey, this is a D&D podcast. Why don't I have dice accessible? But
right.
This game's ultimately about the dice rolls. And having a feat that essentially lets you know what this one roll, either against you or for you, is going to be, is really, really strong. Now, ultimately, this is still rolling the die, but it's a second shot at it, increased odds. You know, the whole probability math comes into play here and says that this is arguably, if not the most powerful feat.
Pretty much, yeah. It's really, really powerful. And then number 4 is a combination of the two, because one is more for non-magic people and the other one is for magic people. But it's basically the same. You read it the same way, essentially. It's just there's one little difference at the end. So the last one is going to be sharpshooter / spell sniper. And I actually have this in my game. My warlock has this. And she can shoot from a distance of 600 feet. Because her longest spell is like 300 feet. And basically what this does is it allows you to double your attack range.
Yep, for the spell sniper.
Yep.
Is the same true for...
attacking long range doesn't impose disadvantage. Yep. And I think your range fighter has this too. Yep,
my range fighter has sharpshooter.
You're welcome.
And yes, because Shay recommended it. And it's been very beneficial. And I can definitely vouch for this being on this list, because the final dot, and I'm sure Shay will read through them all, but essentially for taking a disadvantage on the roll to hit, you can add 10 to the damage.
Yep.
My range fighter, his bonuses are to the point where they're pretty powerful anyway. Taking the penalty isn't that bad for him anymore.
Yeah, it's worth the 10 hit points.
Yeah, this feat used to essentially say don't care about that final dot when he was lower level, but now we're getting to the point where he can not every time, but a fair amount of the time, take that penalty and then just hit a lot harder.
Yep. Exactly. So, sharpshooter, you have mastered ranged weapons and can make shots that others find impossible. You gain the following benefits. Attack at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on your ranged weapon attack rolls. Your ranged weapon ignores half cover and 3/4 cover. So the only way you have a disadvantage on your roll is if you actually had full cover.
Yep.
And then, like you just said, you take the -5 penalty, but if you hit, you get the +10 to attack damage. For Spell Sniper, this is the only one of the prerequisite that I had on my list, that you have to be able to cast one spell, at least.
That's pretty easy requisite to hit, though.
Exactly. And then you gain the benefits. When you cast a spell that requires you to make an attack roll, the spell's range is doubled. Your range also ignores half and 3/4 cover.
Yep.
You learn one cantrip that requires an attack roll. Choose a cantrip from the Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard spell list. Your casting ability for the cantrip depends on the spell list that you choose from. And then it just said, Charisma for Bard, blah, 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 blah. So those are the top 4 that I think in D&D DMs, if you're not familiar with them, you need to become familiar with them and how they will affect your game, because your players will use them to their advantage and you need to be ready for them.
Absolutely.
And now that we've put this list on there, all of our players are probably going to be like, hey, and we're like, oh no, here we go.
Yeah, they're going to go... Our players are going to listen to this someday. Well, actually, this will be our tell. Do they listen? Because do they start taking these feats?
Yeah, that's fair.
Also, DM, so these feats you're going to notice pretty relevant in combat.
Yes.
And pretty easy to find how they're relevant for players. Want to do a quick shout out. There's some feats that they're a little bit harder for just anyone to take because their relevancy isn't in combat. And we talked about the actor role. We talked about alert, which, it can impact combat, but it's not as direct. There's others as well. If you have a player who's really into roleplay and wants to take one of these additional feats that are not combat centric, like actor, and they want to make it relevant, that's as important on us to make sure that we create those scenarios where those feats can be useful, but not so much so that it's like, okay, it's combat time and then it's them o'clock.
Yep.
So make sure that while we're ensuring that there's opportunities to use the feats, we're also making sure that we're creating scenarios where in order to use those feats, they have to be very creative. And also times where other people's feats or other people's characters have that time to shine. So it is a balancing act. But if you do have someone who takes the actor feat, I would just say, hey, don't only let that be the initiative bonus feat. Do have, that's alert.
Yep.
Don't let actor just be like, okay, you have actor, you can go up on a stage. Give them opportunities to talk themselves out of combat. Give them opportunities to talk on behalf of the party to get them into a situation. Give them those opportunities that they may or may not want, depending on your play group, with their party to where, hey, maybe they do have to convince the party to do X.
Yep.
Something that my character, Cade, when I do play him, he likes to do that kind of stuff. He wants to get the party to be his muscle so he can go around his mouth. That's just the character.
That's pretty accurate.
Yep.
So all of that being said, guys, those are the ones, like I said, that kind of stood out to me. If you have ones that have stuck out to you, if you've had players use ones that you weren't expecting, we'd love to hear that. How did that impact your game and how did you respond to that? We would love to hear that. So please reach out to us. We'll give you the info at the end of the show. Kyle, anything you want to add before we end this portion of the show?
Listeners, obviously, we didn't cover every single feat. The odds that, we have the perfect list of the most powerful out there, we don't. Shay and I have our experiences, and these are the ones that stand out to us. If you are truly curious about what each of the feats are, they're not hard to find. Go read about them, but then also take some time to really stop and think about them, because there's some that when I first read, I was like, who would ever want to take that?
Yeah, I know. And then when it gets used against you, you're like, oh, wow. Exactly.
And so don't dismiss any of them. Each can be relevant. A lot of them are situational, and that's kind of the point. Is it's not to make a one character that is Superman and can conquer all scenarios, but it's to make this character better at the thing that they want to be good at.
Right, exactly. All right.
Hey, Jinx, you owe me a soda. Back into our campaign build. Listeners, last time we asked you guys your thoughts and opinions on how this was going and if we wanted to continue to build out the side quests here on the podcast or if we wanted to get into the story beats. And then one day when this is all written out, that's when the side quests would be spelled out, of course, to run the campaign. The votes are in. We are now to the next recording session, and Shay and I are going to move forward with hitting the major story beats.
Yep.
And then at some point down the line, we will look to compile this all together. And when we do that, that's when we'll fill out the side quests. If you have the deep desire to hear a few of those along the way, of course, reach out to us on all the social medias, and we will reach out to you and we will see what we can do. But we do believe that this will help us to stay a little bit focused, because Shay and I have a tendency to get sidetracked, and just like when I play a video game with side quests, I will just do them forever. So this will be a good shout out for us to get back on track.
Ooh, shiny.
And get through this build.
Oh, wait. Sorry. I wasn't supposed to
What
say
shiny did you see?
I know, right? It was over there.
Was it pretty?
Ooh.
All right, so where we last left out, we talked about what we thought was the next major beat of the story, which was that at some point after doing some side quests, the party would come back and the town of Silver Forge would now be experiencing some martial law, that's caused by Balden escaping.
Yep.
And so what does that mean? And I think we want to flesh that out a little bit more this time and then hit on to what the next major story would be. So probably the outcome or the payoff.
Yes.
Of Balden being missing.
Yes. Okay, so that's a great question.
I love it. Like, you can tell when one of us stumps the other, like stumps it. I can't talk tonight. That's a bad thing for a podcaster to not be able to say words.
Yeah, because when I'm stumped, I hear crickets and then I smell smoke just coming out of my head. Because I'm like, I had a thought and then it ran away on me. So,
well, this is his payback because you sprung that ruling question on me earlier, and I was like, I don't know, I wasn't thinking about that.
Fair point, Kyle.
Now we're tidying it.
Yay!
So one thing that you mentioned last time I have in my notes that I really liked is that kind of the big standout of this being martial law is that the people imprisoned in the new structure, or maybe just chained up in the square, we kind of talked about both, were those that were responsible for overseeing Balden's imprisonment. And of course, since he's escaped, they're now imprisoned because they're not trusted, or maybe they're being shamed. And one thing that you also suggested that has really resonated with me is that Balden escaped and maybe there's no sign as to how.
Yes.
There's not like, because we talked about he, being the blacksmith, probably designed the very cage that he was being kept in, and he could know the way out. And that would be obvious. And like, he was smart enough and maybe had some assistance. And that's interesting. I think that's cool. But then the just pure intrigue and opportunity of it being a bigger mystery than that really stuck with me since our last recording.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that has to be, but I'm just saying that's where my vote currently lies because I liked it.
All right, well, let's run with that. Okay, so Balden disappears, and the party is probably asked by the town to find him because Mama at this point is kind of getting more on the irritated side, the edgy side.
I think it still has to be Mama calling the shots.
Yes.
Because she's... like the fraying is there. But one thing that we talked about last time is she still seems like Mayma when she's interacting with the party.
Yep.
But maybe is also trying to keep them a little bit at arm's length still because, we sent them on side quests. They conquer them all. They're back. They seem more competent than what she wanted them to be.
Yeah.
As in they came back.
Yeah. My thought process was that she's kind of keeping them at arm's length. Like she's trying to keep them out of her business so that she can do what she needs to do to run her side operation. So the more that she can kick them away from town, the better chance she has to form the people into the mindset that she has for them and really enact her plan to bring back the terribleness that she's hoping to eventually at some point.
And I think this is a two birds, one stone situation for her. Because the party is a threat in that they are competent and they keep overcoming these things. And Balden is a threat because he is Balden. And he's a blacksmith, he's a skilled worker, he's an intelligent man that would be an opposition of power source to her. So if he's out there, that's bad for her. So wants him recaptured. And gets the party out of town to go do it.
Okay, so Balden designed everything, right? The way he designed it, maybe he can't necessarily just do it by himself. So maybe since we said that he's kind of one of the recruiters for the second level, for the Splintered, I wonder if someone came and helped spring him and they both made haste out of town.
Yep.
And so now the party has to go track him down to bring him back and admonish justice on him.
I think to further get the part, because the party may at this point start recognizing like, hey, this kind of like, those were the guards. It's not they failed, but they being in prison, that's bad.
Yeah.
And they're probably not deserved. Like there's no evidence that they busted him out. I think in order to make sure that the party still bought into this is you do have to have that the town wants this too. They want him brought to justice. They're like, hey, everybody they talk to is like, everything would be better and be fixed again if Balden's is captured.
Yep.
And like that being a almost universal song we're seeing is that if we have Balden back and in custody again, all solved.
Mhm.
And I think this, if trying to get my mind in the mindset of a cunning villain like Maymaw,
Mhm.
this could also be an opportunity to get somebody endeared to the party that is going to be with them for those closer tabs. Because so we've already talked about like all the leadership of the town is her family.
Right.
Maybe we have like a younger offshoot of her family that's kind of seen as the more free-spirited one. And that's the way Maymaw wants her to be to the town. I don't know why I automatically went to her, but them to be to the town. But in all actuality, they are very much part of Maymaw's plan and bought into it. And their job is to kind of act as like a additional scout with the party on this, and also to keep tabs on, are they really this competent? Or they've just been really lucky so far? Because if they're really lucky so far, the luck will run out. They're not a problem. But if they're really competent, they're a problem.
I do remember us talking about this. We did talk about one of the daughters of the sheriff, which was the son of Maymaw.
Yeah, so Maymaw's granddaughter.
Yeah, because there was two of them. We had kind of this yin-yang sisterhood.
Yeah, the good one and the bad one.
Yeah, the other one was kind of more of a free-spirited, could take a bribe if she needed to type.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever gave her a name, but...
Oh, we created a character and didn't name them? That's not us at all.
We named Maymaw, but we didn't... I don't think we really went into naming all of the family yet, because that wasn't the priority at the time.
That will be in the book.
Yeah, so we did mention like one of them was kind of more of a free-spirited, so maybe Maymaw, knowing that, says, hey, daughter or granddaughter, would you tag along and kind of like keep tabs on them?
Yeah, to the free-spirited one?
Yeah, make sure that they're kind of like
that.
By the rules, quote unquote.
Right, which then naturally the free-spirited one's going to be like, I don't want them by the rules. You know, like...
Or, if she's bribed, like it's kind of one of those things like she's trying to trick them, the party, into like trying to find something wrong with the party so she can kind of like, haha, they're not as like, they're great, but they're not that great. You know,
get some dirt on these guys.
Yes.
Get a reason for them not to be as beloved by the town as I am.
Ding, 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 ding.
The town wants Balden back and captured.
But
maybe this free-spirited one is like, they want him taken out. You know, they want him not to be an issue anymore. That's not really what the town wants, because he was a member of the town forever.
Ooh, or what if? So the town sends the party because they know the town knows that the party can do it, but Maymaw wants the glory of bringing this one back, so she sends the granddaughters to go get them themselves. So it's kind of this like race to go get Balden.
Ooh, a little bit more sinister even. Sends the granddaughters, one to be the free-spirited one to be like, hey, be with them, act as a guy in party. I want her going with you guys. She needs this experience, this growth for her, and also need this accountability on you guys. You guys have been doing all this stuff and you're doing great things, but as the town continues to grow, just having a rogue by the ground, having her with you gives you credibility, and people won't second guess it. And then she goes to the other granddaughter and says, you follow them, and when they find him, you get her and you get Balden, you guys get back. I want you bringing them in and trick the party. Like, leave them out there wondering what happened.
Yep.
And if an accident could befell them, bonus point.
Oopsie.
Yeah. And of course, we hope that the party overcomes that accident, but the dice will be the dice. I'm getting more into my evil DM side the longer we do this campaign. Sorry to my real party.
Become one with the dark side. It's fun over here.
Watching Empire helps.
Yeah, I mean, people say that we have cookies. We actually have Chinese food over here. It's a lot better. So,
I did eat Chinese food tonight, fun fact.
I'm actually getting ready to eat Chinese food after we get done with this. So I'm excited.
Oh man, I'm keeping you from a late dinner.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I think like the next I think this arc is really the return of Balden, and I think it should take time, and it should introduce more of the splintered.
Yes.
And it should introduce some weirdness to the world, and it should level the party. This is a major beat. So maybe to wrap up this session, let's talk about what would that look like? What is the big payoff of this that is that leveling? Because is it another fight? We've done that a few times. There's nothing wrong with that if we have another fun way to do it. Or is it a puzzle, roleplay, maze, trap scenario?
Oh, definitely got to start throwing some traps in there and some puzzles.
Yes, I think with the sisters involved, especially the cunning and the lawful one, this is an opportunity for it to be a heavy time-consuming puzzle trap that, of course, them overcoming is going to level them and they're going to be stronger and better for it. But that's why the granddaughters get Baldwin and not them.
I also think that if he is captured the second if or when he is captured the second time, whoever, either side, whether it's the granddaughters or the party, and they're going to have to actually put some effort into this, actually muscle him up a little bit to give up the location of where the splintered or hold up. I think that would be good. And like I said, this is going to take like probably a couple of in-game days. Like, he's not going to just give up the goods. I mean, you're going to have to actually get in there, maybe a little bit of torture, which is going to that's going to be a hard role play if you have a lawful good character.
Yep, they're going to have to convince him somehow.
Yeah, you're going to have to like maybe literally pull some teeth. It'd be like pulling teeth just to get some information out of him. Yeah,
and this is another one that has multiple outcomes, which I love having this as a DM. I used to not. When I was a newer DM, multiple outcomes stressed me out because I was like, how do I know what to plan for it?
Everything.
And that's the freedom of it, is you don't write the story. The players do. We're given the scenario.
Exactly.
The outcomes here is the granddaughters could get Baldwin, take him back, and the party never gets to interrogate him themselves because Mema does, and then maybe Baldwin dies in the interrogation, or she never gives them access because they've fallen in grace. Or the party brings him back, and Mayma's none the worse for it because her granddaughter was with him, so she still gets a rub.
Yep.
The party gets to interrogate. Again, Mayma's none the worse for it, except for didn't take out this rival popularity rising group.
Mm-hmm.
Or something befalls Baldwin, the party goes a little rogue on it. Or Baldwin gets away again because maybe we failed the scenario. And so there's multiple outcomes that can happen here. We'll account for what to do in each scenario in the book. And maybe next time when we talk about this and wrap up this side of the conversation and get into the next major story beat.
Yep.
I get excited for those type of scenarios because then that's really where the players get to take over it. And that's also really what makes this have that replayability, because one scenario happens this time. The odds of you hitting that same scenario again in the same way the next time with a different group, very low.
Oh, yeah. The one thing that I enjoy when you have games like this is that whole old, I don't know exactly what it's called in video games, but it's that whole, like, this character will remember this kind of moment.
Yep.
You know, like, Mama will remember the moment that the party became more popular than her. Baldwin will remember a kind gesture if he's let go, or, you know, he'll remember how you tortured him, stuff like that. And you can, as a DM, you can take that and you can build that into the role play of that character to praise or punish your players for next time. And that's kind of a harsh way of putting it, but whatever you do, there is a consequence to whatever happens in life. And it's no different in D&D.
Yep.
If you mistreat an NPC, if you mistreat Baldwin, he's not going to help you. Or maybe he's one of those really interesting people that he takes punishment for breakfast. And, you know, you got to figure out other ways to get the information out of him.
Yeah, you got to figure out then how to barter with him or how to appeal to him. You know, there's so many ways to come at it. When you have a party that's more combat heavy, they go first to, well, you know, we're going to threaten you with our power.
And he's like, okay.
You can let that work at certain levels, but then a really fun thing to do with a party that likes to do that is give a character that's just not going to yield to that.
Yep.
They're just like, all right, then take me out.
Yep.
I'm not going to give you my info. And so then they have to come up with another way to get it.
Hit me with your back.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to throw this out here. Shay has no idea I'm going to propose this. Blindsiding him right at the end of an episode so he has time to think about it. what if from here on out, each major story beat, and maybe it's every other to give time to let them build so they feel important.
Sure.
And also depending on how big we think the event we come up with is. But each one kind of climbs that ladder of the up to the fractured.
Okay.
So that way, then as we build, kind of what I was having in mind just now, and shoot it down if it's a bad idea, is that as this civilization grows, the threat's growing because Mayma's plan is maturing.
Yep.
And so that those levels are getting involved, and all, of course, leading to what we discussed at the beginning, being our ultimate end goal. She's trying to resurrect her deity, and having that scale of battle be the final moments.
Yep. And all the other groups are working towards the same cause, thinking that they're going to be the ones to resurrect the deity as well. So. Yep.
And so some of them are her plan, some of them are her rivals.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a race.
I think it's fun to introduce them.
As they say in Rat Race, it's a race, I'm winning.
I forgot about that movie until just now. Now I need to go watch it. That's a good, not a sponsor, but just a funny movie.
Trust me, if that movie was sponsoring us, 20 years later? Oh gosh, why did I just say that? Anyway, let's go to game updates. Alrighty, listeners, this is Shay with his game update this week. We had a little bit more of some dungeon delving, which we've been doing for a long time, but we actually went to a deeper part of the cavern. So what happened was the party found Rook, their kind of new guide. He's a deep gnome that was captured by the Cult of Earth that they were dealing with. And so after that happened, he had mentioned that there was a set of stairs that led downwards, and that one of the things that they were trying to keep sacred was this node that they weren't, he wasn't real familiar with. And so the party decided to go downstairs and figure that out. Well, they went into one of the main rooms and they ran into a sarcophagus of a former almost like deified dwarf in their society, and all of the characters that had a good alignment or some variation of good alignment were able to get a specific, I think it was aid spell. Basically, they were able to get some advantages and things like that. Well, the characters that did not have a good alignment, actually, they got forced out of the room. And so that was my sorcerer and one of my fighters. So the fighter and the sorcerer, they said, forget you guys, we're going to go explore on our own. And so that kind of split the party a little bit. So the sorcerer and the fighter went off and they found some specters that they wandered into that area and handled those guys pretty easily. And then the sorcerer did take some damage, but the fighter actually came out pretty clean. Meanwhile, the rogue decided to do some scouting and was hearing this like doof, doof, like kind of like rock throwing kind of sound. So the party kind of came and followed her, and so they jumped into this room, and there was two hill giants that were throwing rocks, kind of playing tic-tac-toe. Well, the trolls, one of them decided to challenge the party. The party won. He got all mad. They couldn't calm him down, and so a fight ensued, which the trolls actually held their own a lot better than I thought they were going to be honest with you. Because my party usually likes to roll high on a lot of their attacks. So the fact that they held in there as long as they did was pretty impressive. So after that, as that was all going on, the sorcerer and the fighter, they continued on, and they ended up running into a room that was very like hot. It was very almost 4G, but it was like just real. It was almost like they were in like a fire room. And so then they climbed these stairs and ran into, well, they didn't like run into, but they found a Nothic, if you know what those are. It's kind of like this one-eyed creature that can have some psychic abilities and kind of learn some secrets about you if they roll high enough and stuff. And then there was a Minotaur in there as well. Well, they were able to use some magic to move the Minotaur away. And then the Nothic was trying to figure out where that sound was coming from, so they lured him back into the room where they took out the specters. and the Nothic ended up getting slain by them, but actually was able to take out the sorcerer in the process. So now the fighter has to figure out where the rest of the party is so that he can find the clerics, and the rest of the party is licking their wounds from the fight with the hill giants. So that's where we were at the end of this episode. We will see where they end up.
Wow, I cannot believe that character did that. And Shay, you did what? Wild.
Every time you do that, I want to just have an episode where it's just like they walked through the tunnel for 3 hours.
Or like, you could totally bait me sometime and just be like, ha, Kyle, there wasn't a play update. I'm waiting for that to happen. That's what I've been waiting for. But listeners,
I'm just going to do that in a different recording.
Thank you for sticking it through to the end of the episode. Shay and I, we say this all the time, but we say it because we truly mean it. Just thank you so much. We are blown away that all of you guys, the love that you've poured out, the interest, the engagement, it means so much. We're just 2 guys who love Dungeons and Dragons. We love being the GM, the DM. We love Pathfinder. We just love these role-playing tabletop games, and we just love that we get to share it with you. So thank you so much for supporting us by, downloading the episodes, leaving the reviews, or reaching out to us via our email. It means everything to us. When Shay and I started this, we've said this before, we thought we'd be lucky if anyone other than the 2 of us ever downloaded our podcasts. So just thank you so much, guys. We're so grateful. And if you are liking this, or you have an idea for our next advice section, or you have thoughts on the campaign that we're building, or just thoughts on the game, you want to share your love and your experiences, we love to hear those stories too. You can hit us up at the Dungeon Master Talk Facebook page, or on X, formerly known as Twitter, at DMT the Podcast, or you can use the hashtag Dungeon Master Talk. And by the time that this drops, you'll be able to hit us up on Instagram at DMT the Podcast. And we are looking forward to reaching out to you. Also, as Shay remembered, I had forgotten, even though I was really excited about it before we recorded, you can also see us on YouTube. Although, again, we do not have the video yet, but it's just the audio. But you can hit us up there. If you reach out to us on the community tab, we will reach out back.
Yeah.
We just
or
really love
leave
to
a comment on the video, or, well, the quote-unquote video, I guess is what it's called. But
yeah.
And if you have a question or comment that you want to leave that's longer than a tweet, you can always email us at dungeonmastertalk@gmail.com. We just, like you said, we just love to talk with you guys. We love to talk D&D or life or whatever you want to talk about. We're here for it. So
yeah, it does not have to be directly relevant to an episode we drop. If you have just a story you want to share or a question you want to ask, if you're afraid that we'll shout it out, if you tell us, hey, I don't want this shouted out on your episode, I just want to reach out,
mum's the word.
We love that too. And we've had listeners do that, and it's great. We just love interacting with you guys.
That's accurate. So for all of us here at Dungeon Master Talk, I am Shay.
And I'm Kyle.
We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Peace.